My brothers and sisters, we live in a time where many speak of freedom, where voices rise in demand for liberty, choice, and the right to be heard. These are noble ideals, sacred in their essence, yet too often we misunderstand what it means to be truly free. Some believe freedom means doing as one pleases, unbound by rule or responsibility. But I have learned, through pain, through silence, through struggle, that real freedom is not the license to follow every impulse. It is the power to govern oneself. Discipline is the foundation of freedom. There can be no lasting liberty without discipline. A person who is ruled by their emotions, who cannot guide their actions with reason, is not free. They are a prisoner of chaos. In the same way, a nation that loses discipline becomes vulnerable to its own undoing. We must remember that the highest form of freedom is not external, but internal. It is when a person, standing alone in the dark, chooses the light. It is when one walks away from anger, not because it is easy, but because it is right. That is freedom, and that freedom is born of discipline. From an early age, we are taught to obey rules. But discipline is not mere obedience. It is understanding the reason for the rules and choosing to live by them even when no one is watching. Discipline is what a young student needs to resist the call of distraction and focus on learning, not because someone is forcing them, but because they see a better tomorrow. It is what a leader needs when facing provocation, to speak peace instead of vengeance. It is what a parent must hold when faced with hardship, to raise a child not with fear, but with love and steady guidance. I have seen men stripped of everything: family, freedom, even their names, but who remained unbroken. Why? Because they had discipline. They had learned to master themselves, to wake every day with purpose, to speak when silence was easier, to endure when giving up would bring comfort. They were not perfect men, but they were free men, and that is what discipline gives us. The unshakable dignity that no power, no force, no violence can take away. We speak of building a better future, but such a future cannot be built on dreams alone. It must be laid brick by disciplined hands. It is easy to shout in the streets. It is harder to organize, harder to plan, harder still to hold your brothers and sisters to a higher standard and to hold yourself first. That is the work of discipline. It demands sacrifice. It demands humility, but it rewards us with something far greater: peace within ourselves and respect from the world. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is its truest guardian. The one who disciplines themselves does not fear the law, for their law comes from within. They do not seek validation from others, for they live by principle. They do not falter at hardship, for they have already trained their spirit for endurance. What more noble power can we possess than the ability to choose what is right, when all the world offers us what is easy? Our communities must learn this again. We must teach our children not only their rights, but their responsibilities. Not only how to demand justice, but how to live justly. Let us raise leaders who do not chase applause, but who walk the long road, steady and sure, knowing that true leadership begins with self-discipline. Let us build schools that teach not only knowledge, but character, where a young mind can discover that the most powerful weapon against failure is the will to try again with discipline. When we embrace discipline, we rise above fear. We become unshaken in the face of intimidation. We do not act from impulse, but from conviction. Our words carry weight, our silence holds meaning, and our actions build the future not with fire and fury, but with wisdom and resolve. The world does not need more noise. It needs more discipline. It needs people who can lead by example, who can endure storms without losing their way, who know that greatness is not shouted. It is shown in quiet, disciplined persistence. Let no one deceive you into believing that freedom and discipline cannot walk together. They must. They always have. And if we are to walk into the light of a new dawn as individuals, as a people, as a nation, then we must walk with discipline as our guide. That is the path of the truly free. There are moments in life when everything we believe is tested, moments when the world seems to turn its back, when the weight of injustice sits heavy on our shoulders, and the horizon feels too far to reach. In such times, many will tell you to have hope. And yes, hope is vital. But I will tell you something more. When hope flickers, when it grows faint and brittle, it is discipline that keeps the flame alive. Discipline in the face of adversity is what carries us through when all else fails. It is easy to stand tall when the sun shines and the winds are gentle. It is easy to speak with calm when the crowd agrees and the way is clear. But the measure of a person is not taken in comfort. It is taken in the storm. When hardship strikes, it is discipline that gives us the strength not to crumble, not because we feel no pain, but because we have chosen not to be ruled by it. In times of adversity, there is a temptation to abandon our principles. Fear whispers that it would be easier to give in, to retaliate, to lash out, to match hate with hate. But the disciplined soul resists that temptation. Discipline is the quiet voice that says, hold your ground, speak truth, but do not become what you oppose, endure, but do not harden your heart. That is a strength far greater than violence. That is courage rooted in self-control. I have seen men suffer and lose everything, but because they had discipline, they did not lose themselves. Their dignity was not for sale, not even in the face of injustice. They kept rising each morning, kept walking in silence, kept believing that suffering was not the end of the story. Discipline gave them that resolve. It allowed them to bear pain without bitterness, to carry burdens without complaint. They became unbreakable, not because they had no wounds, but because their will was stronger than their wounds. When the nights were cold and the walls were high, discipline became a kind of prayer, a decision made not once, but over and over again. A refusal to allow cruelty to define our character, a choice to keep rising even when no one was watching. We learned to master our reactions, to find clarity in silence, and to plant our feet where others saw no ground. Adversity became our teacher. Discipline was the lesson, and so it must be for all of us. We must understand that hardship is not a detour. It is part of the journey. And on that path, discipline is the compass that keeps us from losing our way. When others fall into despair, discipline reminds us that the road continues. When others surrender to anger, discipline steadies our hand. When everything tells us to stop, discipline urges us to take one more step. It is not always dramatic. Often, discipline shows itself in the smallest ways. A word withheld, a duty fulfilled, a promise kept. But it is in those moments that the future is shaped. The seeds of resilience are sown in daily decisions, in silent sacrifices, in the lonely hours when no reward seems near. And yet, that very discipline becomes the bridge that carries us across the waters of doubt and into the land of purpose. Let me speak plainly. Adversity will come. It will come to every home, every nation, every dream worth chasing. But we must never allow adversity to break our spirit. We must never let it convince us to become less than what we are. If we meet adversity with discipline, It will not defeat us. It will refine us. It will strip away illusion, sharpen our focus, and make us into something stronger than before. Not perfect, but principled. Not untouched, but unwavering. This is how we build a future not just for ourselves, but for generations still to come. A future where people stand for justice, not only in peace, but in trial, where they speak not just with passion, but with discipline, where they do not simply dream, but they endure for the sake of the dream. So let us not curse the dark. Let us not give in to the night. Let us stand, not with clenched fists, but with disciplined hearts. For it is not the absence of struggle that defines greatness. It is the strength to keep walking through it with our integrity intact. Let us rise in adversity, not as victims, not as rebels without cause, but as disciplined souls, determined to light the way forward. My friends, we often speak of greatness as though it is a gift, as though it arrives suddenly, carried by the winds of destiny. But greatness is not born in moments of applause or recognition. It is built in silence. It is built when no one is watching. It is built in the quiet struggle between what we want now and what we know is right. And the force that shapes that struggle into something noble is discipline. Character is not formed in comfort. It is revealed in the choices we make when the world offers shortcuts, when it tempts us with the easier path. The disciplined mind resists that call. It understands that character is not given. It is earned, one decision at a time, not in the grand gestures, but in the small acts of restraint, in the refusal to surrender our values for convenience. Each of us is tested, not once, but many times, in moments that seem insignificant. But if we meet those moments with discipline, we are slowly, patiently, building a foundation that no storm can shake. Discipline gives purpose its true strength. Without it, a dream is just a wish. A plan is just a thought. But discipline turns intention into action. It takes the vision we hold in our hearts and plants it in the soil of daily labor. The artist who rises before dawn to practice, the student who reads one more chapter, the farmer who tends the land through drought and flood, they are all guided by discipline. Their hands may grow tired, but their purpose remains steady, and through that steady effort, purpose becomes real. I have seen many gifted people falter, not because they lacked talent, but because they lacked discipline. And I have seen those with little recognition rise to heights that others believed unreachable. Why? Because they woke each day and chose to keep going. They did not wait for inspiration. They did not wait for praise. They committed to the task before them, and in doing so, they built something greater than applause. They built character. We must never underestimate the power of consistent effort. A stone is not shaped by a single strike, but by many. A tree does not grow in a day. Likewise, a just and noble life is not lived by chance. It is shaped by discipline, by a daily return to principle, by the willingness to endure discomfort in pursuit of something higher than ourselves. This is the path to a life of meaning. This is the path that transforms potential into power. Our young people must understand this. In a world filled with distractions, with voices calling them to seek pleasure, to chase quick victories, they must hear another voice, the voice of discipline. A voice that says, you are capable of more. You are not defined by your impulses. You are not a slave to circumstance. You are the author of your own character. That message must be repeated again and again, not in scolding, but in example. Let them see in us what it means to live with purpose. to hold to a path even when it is hard. And let us speak honestly. Discipline is not always rewarded. It may not win you the crowd, it may not bring comfort, but it will give you something deeper, self-respect. When you live with discipline, you look in the mirror and see someone who keeps their word, someone who strives, who fails and rises, who stands for something even when standing alone. That is the soil from which true leadership grows. There are times when the world will try to pull you from your path, times when the winds of doubt blow hard against your spirit, but the one who has built discipline into their bones will not be moved. They know who they are, they know why they continue. They walk not with arrogance, but with certainty, because their strength is not borrowed, it is earned. Discipline is not a cage, it is a compass. It does not confine us. It frees us to live with clarity and resolve. It frees us to become the person we were meant to be, not by chance, not by fortune, but by effort. And in that effort, we find our purpose. We find the quiet power of a life lived with direction, with honor, with meaning. So let us shape our character with the patience of those who plant seeds for a harvest they may never see. Let us walk with discipline, not just when it is easy, but especially when it is not. For in that journey, we become not only builders of our own lives, but builders of a future worth inheriting. My brothers and sisters, discipline is not only something we carry within ourselves, it is something we owe each other. Too often, we speak of it as if it lives only in the hearts of individuals, like a private struggle or a personal trait. But discipline is also a shared responsibility. It is the quiet bond that holds a community together, the unspoken understanding that we must not only lift ourselves, but that we must also help to lift others. A society cannot flourish on ambition alone. It must be held together by principle, by order, by discipline. When one person chooses discipline, they may improve their own life. But when many choose discipline together, they build a culture, a place where values are upheld, where trust is possible, and where peace has a foundation to stand on. Think of a village, a town, a nation. It is not built by laws alone. It is built when each person decides to play their part. When the teacher prepares for class, not just because it's their job, but because they believe in shaping minds. When the shopkeeper treats customers with honesty, not because someone is watching, but because it's right. When the leader leads with integrity, not to win favor, but because they serve something greater than themselves. That is discipline, and that is the strength of a people. We are bound to each other. Your discipline strengthens mine. My effort inspires yours. When a child sees their parents rise each morning and work with purpose, they learn what is possible. When a leader speaks truth, others find the courage to do the same. That is how we grow, not in isolation, but together, each act of discipline echoing in the lives around us. It is a chain that does not bind us, it lifts us. Without this collective discipline, our freedom becomes fragile. If each one lives only for themselves, if each one refuses responsibility, then our shared life begins to unravel. You can build schools, but without discipline in the classroom, there will be no learning. You can build roads, but if people do not drive with care, there will be no safety. You can write laws, but without disciplined citizens and just leaders, the law means little. Discipline is not about control. It is about cooperation. It is about recognizing that we each have a role in building the world we want to live in. We must teach this, not just to children, but to ourselves. Discipline is not punishment. It is preparation. It is not about taking away freedom. It is about teaching how to use freedom wisely. Let us show that freedom without responsibility is a danger, not a prize. Let us teach that justice requires more than demands. It requires the daily work of living honorably. That peace requires more than silence. It requires choices rooted in discipline, day after day. If we want to end corruption, we must begin with discipline. Not only in courts and councils, but in our homes, our schools, our neighborhoods. If we want to build equality, we must practice fairness in our own lives, in how we treat each other, in how we listen and respond. These are not abstract ideas. They are real living acts of discipline that shape the soul of our society. And we must hold each other accountable not with cruelty, but with courage. If someone strays, we must help them return. If someone forgets their role in the larger whole, we must remind them, not to shame, but to restore. A disciplined society is not harsh. It is caring. It sees the long road and walks it together. It understands that greatness is not measured by how high the strongest can rise, but by how far the community can go when we walk as one. Look around you. We are many. We are diverse. We do not all speak the same, look the same, believe the same. But discipline unites us, not by force, but by purpose, not by fear, but by vision. If we want a future where our children are safe, where opportunity is real, where dignity is not a dream but a right, then we must build it with discipline. With shared effort, with collective strength, let each one of us ask, what example do I give? What weight am I willing to carry? What future am I helping to shape? Because we do not walk alone. Every step we take, someone is watching. Someone is learning. Someone is following. Let us give them a path worth walking. Let us be the generation that understood that discipline is not a burden. It is a gift we give to each other for the sake of a better world.